What happens when a family who has known only struggle finally gets a chance to dream? When a dock worker, a single mother, and a little girl step beyond their village for the first time, what will they discover? Today on Life Single, witness a 3-day journey that changes everything. Stay with us. The evening sun cast long shadows across the small house as Day walked through the door, his face glowing with an expression Huyen had rarely seen. In his weathered hands, he clutched an envelope, its crisp whiteness seeming almost out of place against his calloused fingers. "Huyen," he called softly, his voice trembling with excitement. "We've been given something incredible." Huyen looked up from the vegetables she was washing, water dripping from her hands as she turned toward her husband. Maya, playing with her worn doll in the corner, sensed the change in atmosphere and ran to her father's side. "What is it, Daddy Day?" the little girl asked, her bright eyes full of curiosity. Day knelt down, pulling both his wife and daughter close. "We're going on a trip, a real trip to the city. 3 whole days." The words hung in the air like magic. Huyen's hands flew to her mouth, tears instantly welling in her eyes. In all her 30-some years, she had never traveled beyond the neighboring villages. When she was 18 and married Thuk, she had dreamed of seeing the world. But those dreams died when her husband chose gambling over family, when prison bars replaced promises, when her mother-in-law threw her and 3-year-old Maya onto the streets with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Those dark nights sleeping in abandoned sheds, watching her daughter cry from hunger, seemed like a lifetime ago now. Since Day came into their lives, everything had changed. He had given them not just a home, but hope. And now this. "Is it real, Mama?" Maya whispered, tugging at Huyen's sleeve. "Are we really going?" Huyen could only nod, unable to speak through her tears. Dee wrapped his strong arms around both of them, his own eyes glistening. "It's real, my loves. We leave tomorrow morning." That night, sleep refused to come. Huyen lay awake, watching the moonlight paint silver patterns on the ceiling. Beside her, Day breathed steadily, but she knew he wasn't sleeping either. In the small bed across the room, Maya tossed and turned, too excited to rest. Before dawn, they were all up. Day had borrowed a small bag from a neighbor, and Huyen carefully folded their modest clothes, making sure Maya's best dress was on top. It wasn't much, but it was clean and mended with love. She packed the special rice cakes she had made the day before, worried about spending too much money on city food. "Bring only what you need," Day had said gently. "This trip is about making memories, not carrying burdens." As the first rays of sunlight broke over the mountains, the 3 of them stood at the village bus stop. Maya clutched her father's hand on one side, her mother's on the other, forming an unbreakable chain. Neighbors had gathered to see them off, offering advice and good wishes. When the bus finally arrived, its engine rumbling like distant thunder, Maya's eyes grew wide as saucers. She had seen buses before, but never imagined riding in one. Dee lifted her up the steep steps, then turned to help Huyen, always the gentleman. They found seats near the window, Maya pressed between her parents, her nose against the glass. As the bus pulled away, she waved frantically at the villagers until they disappeared from view. The journey was magical. Mountains gave way to rolling hills, then to flatter lands Huyen had only heard about in stories. Rice paddies stretched like green mirrors reflecting the sky. Small towns appeared and vanished. Maya pointed at everything, asking endless questions that Day answered with patient wonder. "Look, Mama, that building is so tall." "Daddy D, why are there so many cars?" "Is that the city? Is it?" As they drew closer to their destination, even Day fell silent, taking in the sight of buildings that seemed to touch the clouds. streets filled with more people than their entire village, and lights that made the afternoon seem bright as noon. Huyen reached for Day's hand, squeezing it tightly. He looked at her and smiled, understanding everything she couldn't say. They had arrived. The small hotel stood on a quiet street, its clean white walls and blue shutters welcoming them like an embrace. As the receptionist handed Day the key, Huyen felt as though she were in a dream. Following her husband up the narrow stairs, she held Maya's hand, afraid to let go, afraid this beautiful dream might shatter. When Day opened the door to their room, Huyen gasped. It was small, yes, but to her it was a palace. 2 beds with white sheets that looked impossibly clean, a bathroom with running water and tiles that gleamed, a window overlooking a small garden. Maya ran straight to the bed, jumping on it and giggling with delight. "Mama, it's so soft. Come feel it." Huyen sat carefully on the bed's edge, running her hand over the smooth fabric. How many nights had she slept on rough mats, on cold ground, wondering if her daughter would have a better life? The tears came again, but these were tears of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered to Day, who was unpacking their small bag. He crossed the room and sat beside her, pulling her close. "You deserve this, and so much more," he said quietly. "Both of you." After freshening up, they headed to the amusement park. Maya skipped ahead, her excitement contagious. The park entrance was decorated with colorful balloons and cheerful music played from speakers, but nothing could have prepared them for what waited inside. The roller coaster rose into the sky like a steel dragon, its tracks twisting and turning in impossible ways. People screamed as the cars rushed past, a blur of color and motion. "Can we ride it, Daddy D? Please?" Maya begged, jumping up and down. Day looked at Huyen, who had gone pale. She had spent her life with her feet firmly on the ground, working in fields, carrying water, surviving. The idea of being flung through the air terrified her. "I don't know," she began. But then she saw Maya's hopeful face and Day's encouraging smile. "Together," Day said, taking her hand. "We'll do it together." The wait in line felt eternal. Huyen's heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. When their turn came, Day helped Maya into the middle seat, then sat on one side, while Huyen took the other, sandwiching their daughter between them. As the car began its slow climb, Huyen gripped the safety bar with white knuckles. Higher and higher they rose, the park shrinking below them. At the top, there was a moment of absolute stillness, and in that moment, Huyen looked at her family and thought, "This is what living feels like." Then they dropped. The world became a whirlwind of wind and speed and pure, unexpected joy. Huyen screamed, but she was also laughing, really laughing, in a way she hadn't in years. Maya's delighted shrieks filled the air, and Day's deep laughter rumbled beside them. When the ride finally ended, all 3 stumbled off, dizzy and grinning. "Again!" Maya shouted. "Can we go again?" They didn't ride again, but they walked through the park with new lightness in their steps. The afternoon took them to the water gardens, a sprawling paradise of fountains and flowers. Thousands of blooms created a tapestry of colors that seemed painted by an artist's brush. He stopped at each information sign, reading about the different species. His practical mind was already working, thinking about which flowers might grow in their village's climate, how they could brighten their own small yard. "Look at this one," he called to Huyen, pointing at a cascade of purple blossoms. "It's called wisteria. It says here they can grow almost anywhere with proper care." Huyen joined him, Maya on her hip now, the excitement having tired the little girl slightly. She studied the flowers, imagining them climbing the side of their modest home. It seemed impossible, yet here they were in a city, in a garden, on a trip they never thought they'd take. Maybe nothing was impossible anymore. They found a bench near a fountain where water danced in sparkling arcs. Dee bought ice cream from a vendor, handing the precious treats to his wife and daughter before taking his own. They sat in comfortable silence, watching other families pass by, listening to the music of water and laughter. Maya's ice cream melted faster than she could eat it, dripping down her chin. Huyen wiped it away with her sleeve, not caring about the stain. These were the kinds of stains she wanted in her life now. Evidence of happiness, proof of living. Is this what happy feels like all the time? Maya asked suddenly, her innocent question piercing straight to her parents' hearts. Dee and Huyen exchanged glances over their daughter's head. In that look passed 1,000 words, a shared history of pain, and a promise of better days ahead. Yes, little one, Huyen whispered, kissing her daughter's sticky forehead. This is exactly what happy feels like. The third morning arrived too quickly, bringing with it the bittersweet knowledge that their adventure would soon end. But first, there was one more experience waiting for them on the gentle river that wound through the city's heart. The kayak rental station sat beneath ancient willow trees, their branches trailing in the water like green curtains. Dee had some experience with boats from his dock work, but a kayak was different, smaller, requiring balance and coordination. The instructor showed him how to hold the paddle, how to steer, and Day listened with the focused attention he brought to everything he did. "You'll be fine," the instructor said with a smile. "The river is calm here, perfect for families." Huyen settled into the front of the kayak, with Maya snuggled safely between her legs, both wearing bright orange life jackets. Dee positioned himself at the back, his strong arms ready to guide them. With a gentle push from the dock, they glided onto the water. The world transformed. Sounds became muffled, softened by the water's embrace. Buildings that had seemed overwhelming from the streets now reflected peacefully on the river's surface, their mirror images dancing with each ripple. The morning sky stretched overhead, impossibly blue and vast. Dee paddled with steady rhythm, his strokes confident despite the unfamiliar craft. The kayak moved smoothly, cutting through the water like a knife through silk. Huyen relaxed into the motion, one arm around Maya, the other trailing in the cool water. "It's so quiet," Maya observed, her usual energy subdued by the tranquility surrounding them. "Sometimes the best moments are the quiet ones," Day replied softly. They passed under a stone bridge where children waved down at them. They glided past small parks where early morning joggers ran along the riverside paths. They navigated around other kayakers, exchanging friendly nods and smiles. In a particularly peaceful stretch where weeping willows created a tunnel of green, Day stopped paddling and let the kayak drift. The gentle current carried them slowly forward, and in that suspended moment, time seemed to stop. Huyen turned to look back at her husband, her heart so full she thought it might overflow. "I never thought," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I could be this happy." Dee's eyes met hers, and she saw everything reflected there. His love, his commitment, his promise of protection. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We have a whole life ahead of us." Maya, sensing the weight of the moment even if she couldn't fully understand it, reached up to touch her mother's face. "Don't cry, Mama." But Huyen was crying, tears of pure joy rolling down her cheeks. "These are happy tears, my darling, the best kind." As they paddled back toward the dock, Maya's head drooped against her mother's chest, the early morning and the rocking motion lulling her toward sleep. Dee increased his pace slightly, wanting to let his daughter rest. That afternoon, they wandered through a bustling market. The vendors' calls, the smell of fresh produce, the riot of colors all reminded them of home. Yet everything was on a grander scale. Dee studied how goods were displayed, how prices were marked clearly, how sellers interacted with customers. Huyen noticed the organization, the cleanliness, the efficiency. "We could do some of this at home," Day murmured, more to himself than to Huyen. "Not exactly like this, but we could improve things." That evening, their last in the city, they sat on the small balcony of their hotel room. Maya was already asleep, worn out from 3 days of wonder. Huyền and Day remained outside, watching the city lights flicker to life like earthbound stars. "Tomorrow we go back," Huyền said quietly. "Tomorrow we go home," Day corrected gently. "We take these memories, these ideas, these feelings, and we build on them." Huyen leaned against his shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him, the reliability that had saved her and Maya from despair. The city glowed before them, beautiful and distant, but she knew now that beauty and hope could exist anywhere, even in their small village, as long as they had each other. "Thank you for giving us this," she whispered. They kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for letting me love you both." 3 days, just 3 short days, yet they contained a lifetime of transformation. For Day and Huyen, this journey was more than a vacation. It was proof that their hard work meant something, that better days were possible, that dreams could come true even for those who started with nothing. Maya will carry these memories forever. Her first time on a roller coaster, her first taste of city ice cream, her first kayak ride with the 2 people who love her most in the world. She will remember that her mother smiled without sadness, that her father laughed without worry, and that for 3 perfect days, they were simply a family wrapped in happiness. The trip didn't change who they were. Dee will return to the docks, his hands still working hard. Huyen will continue managing their modest home with grace and strength. Maya will play with the same simple toys. But inside, something has shifted. They've seen possibilities. They've tasted joy. They've proven to themselves that they deserve good things. And perhaps that's the greatest gift of all. Not the trip itself, but the knowledge that happiness isn't reserved for the wealthy or the fortunate. It belongs to anyone brave enough to keep hoping, keep loving, keep trying. This is Life Single, where we celebrate the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to transform ordinary lives into extraordinary stories. If this journey touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and share this story with someone who needs a reminder that better days are always possible. Thank you for walking this path with us. Until next time, keep believing in your dreams.